2025年，美国川普政府将按计划至少遣返38000名中国人。根据美国国土安全部现有数据，美国政府将逮捕并遣返38000名中国人回到中华人民共和国。
We begin in the United States, where President-elect Donald Trump has continued to promise to crack down against illegal immigration on day one of taking office. With Inauguration Day just about a month away, Donald Trump's rhetoric about deporting over 1 million migrants is increasing. This comes after the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, released data of the number of illegal migrants who are reportedly being marked for deportation. According to the ICE document, 1.5 million migrants have been identified for deportation, with the highest number of undocumented residents being from Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and El Salvador. The list also includes thousands of migrants from Asia, particularly China and India. Now, the United States has about 7 million undocumented migrants living in the country, with the most being from Mexico, followed by El Salvador, India, Guatemala, and Honduras. Washington has already begun deporting some of the illegal immigrants, particularly those who have a criminal record or ties to drug cartels. Meanwhile, in an interview with Time magazine last week, Donald Trump said that he would also cut business ties with nations refusing to take back migrants that are going to be deported from the United States.
I'll get them into every country, or we won't do business with those countries. I want them out, and the countries have got to take them back. If they don't take them back, we won't do business with those countries, and we will impose substantial tariffs on them.
Now, the United States has already designated at least 15 nations as uncooperative in the deportation process, with some of the major countries being India, Russia, China, Ukraine, and Cuba. With Donald Trump threatening to impose sanctions on these countries for refusing to take back migrants, Washington could be staring at a global trade war and strained diplomatic tensions. Time and again, prominent economic and business experts have warned that the tariffs would increase the cost of living for average Americans and even impact the U.S. stock market.
It reacts to tariffs, whether or not, they have an impact that could slow growth or create a stickier inflationary environment will be dependent on what's actually implemented. And I'm sure the administration will be very thoughtful about how it proceeds. It's the same thing with immigration policy and deportations.
Now, if Donald Trump goes ahead with his plans of deportations and tariffs, American taxpayers will not just be paying for the high logistical cost of the mass deportations, but even for daily use products, as India and China remain among the 10 trading partners for the United States, particularly for mobile phones, pharmaceutical goods, and other products.
They can't live without me, I can't live without them.
That's Wei Zhang and his children. They're worried he'll be sent back to China when President-elect Donald Trump takes office.
If my dad were to be deported, it'd tear our entire family up.
He's just my emotional help, he's my physical help, he's our financial help, he's just our dad.
Just thinking about the things that would happen, the hardships that would emerge from my dad's loss, his deportation.
It's an emotional topic for the family. Wei says he immigrated from China more than 30 years ago.
My mom brought me here when I was 17. I got my B2 visa from Hong Kong, and I overstayed my visa.
Wei is now married to an American and has gotten several work permits over the years. He's been an electrician and has owned restaurants in the area. He claims he's applied for green cards and visas, but he says there have been complications along the way.
Every time I try to get my legal paper right, I always got denied.
Now he's working with attorney Michael Piston out of New York. Piston says recently he's gotten an influx of calls.
There are people who are very concerned about this issue, and yes, we've gotten quite a few calls about it.
President-elect Trump has promised mass deportations once he takes office. Recently, he said criminals will be deported first. But for people like Wei, who is not considered a criminal, hearing mass deportations is worrying. Piston says removing immigrants out of the country is not a quick process.
We tell the people who do not have orders of removal that their concerns are premature because they cannot be removed unless they have a final order of removal.
He says as of now, that process can take years. But for those who do have a final order,
then I would say Put your affairs in order because it is quite possible that you will be removed. And in many cases, there will be nothing that can be done about that.
Wei says he's had a final deportation order for the last 15 years, meaning at any point he could have been deported. But for more than a decade, he's had a check-in with ICE, and he's hoping he doesn't have to leave his home and his family behind.
Asking President Trump not to do mass deportations. Please look at every case differently, not just close your eye and say zero tolerance.
Piston points out there are a number of immigration lawyers and nonprofits that can help anyone dealing with a similar situation. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has several resources on this website.
Well, among the surge of migrants crossing the southern border and making their way to New York City, asylum seekers all the way from China.
Many of them are finding their way into long-established communities and leaning on family and friends for help.
All right, here's Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini with the latest in our Migrants in America series.
At just 23 years old, she decided to take on a dangerous journey across the U.S.-Mexico border. A video and a few photos captured on her iPhone during the process are the reminders now of the life she left behind. Tell us about the journey.
坐车走路坐飞机过来 I have gone through a lot of difficulties to come to America.
I interviewed Ms. Chen through a translator at her immigration attorney's office.
No, I won't. The question is, do I file?
Edward Kucha has been based in Manhattan's Chinatown for decades. He says he's managing an increase in immigration cases related to people from China.
What do you make of the surge? What kind of context can you give us?
It's tough. It's really hard to put in context because China's huge. It's the middle class, I think, that are being squeezed now in a way that they weren't before, economically, religiously.
When I asked Ms. Chen why she left China, she said,
My family doesn't agree me to be a Christian, and also the country is not allow us to be a Christian.
According to the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom conditions in China continue to deteriorate. According to the Pew Research Center last year, China's constitution says ordinary citizens enjoy freedom of religious beliefs, but authorities closely police religious activity. The Migration Policy Institute is tracking a surge of Chinese migrants. Julia Gilad is Associate Director of the U.S. Immigration Policy Program at the Institute.
Some of the push factors in China, people were pretty frustrated with how restrictive the COVID lockdowns were. The economy there has had some challenges in the wake of COVID with high unemployment. And I'm sure some people are sick of living under the authoritarian government that China has.
Like people from other countries long have, Chinese migrants are following the long-established routes of human smugglers.
Through the internet, through videos on TikTok and other social media, we've seen a spread of information about how migrants can come to the United States.
Did you pay a human smuggler? She says it cost around 50,000 American dollars to get here. Where did you get $50,000?
It's all from my church brothers and sisters. They all support me to come.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection data shows the sharp increase in CBP encounters with people from China at the southern border. In the 2021 fiscal year, the number was 450. By 2022, 2,176. In 2023, 24,314. And this fiscal year so far, as of March, 24,376. Ms. Chen says the journey out of China started with a plane ride to Thailand and then to Turkey. She says from there, Mexico. Tijuana, Mexico. Across the border, U.S. soil. She says she walked into the U.S. state of California. I asked who she came with.
About 12 people, 12 migrants.
From China?
也是从中国来的吗? Yes.
How did you get to New York?
My snakehead bought a ticket.
A snakehead is a term used for a human smuggler. In our Migrants in America series,
where are you guys from?
We are from China.
You're all from China?
Yeah.
While reporting on the backlog at the Immigration and Customs Office in Lower Manhattan, we met a group of people from China waiting alongside others, mostly for matters pertaining to their asylum claims.
We all want to stay in America.
When it comes to the surge of asylum seekers seeking refuge in New York City, the data shows only 500 Chinese migrants in city shelters as of March. In city records, the Chinese demographic so minor it falls in the other category.
It's important to realize that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Chinese arriving in New York City every month.
Professor Kenneth Guest is a Chinese immigration expert with insight on this new wave of Chinese asylum seekers crossing the U.S.-Mexico border and coming to New York City.
Because they are able to engage and interact with local Chinese economic and social structures, they're not popping up on our radar screen. They're not showing up in the statistics in the shelters.
Of course, we know in New York there are long-established communities like Manhattan's Chinatown, where in just a few short months, Ms. Chen says she found a new religious home base.
When you got to New York, what did you do?
我就经常就是在那
I keep looking for the church and church's brothers and sisters.
And she connected with relatives who are willing to help her.
住在亲人的家。
I live with my relative.
Back home, she says she was a school teacher.
Do you miss China?
你想念中国吗？
不会。
No.
She left her parents and her younger sister behind.
Was your family upset?
他们非常喜欢。
Yes. My family liked Buddhist.
Like other migrants from China are reporting, she says freedom is worth the journey.
Do you believe that the Chinese government is oppressive?
那你感觉到中国或者是你的国家会不会给你压力？
会。
Yes.
Here at this immigration office in Manhattan's Chinatown, Ms. Chen's religious asylum case file is one of many.
How did she come to the lawyer's office? How did she find the lawyer?
我姐姐说这边的。
My sister told me that this law firm is very famous.
Her attorney says it will likely take years to move through the overburdened immigration court system. Stephanie Bertini, Fox 5 News.
各位观众，你同意美国政府遣返这38000名中国人吗？各位观众，你同意美国开展大规模遣返行动吗？请问为什么？请把你的想法写在评论区。感谢收看，感谢关注。